Zoom record. So we will record this as usual, and it'll be posted on our website once we download it. And we're going to have a smallish group today, but small but mighty. Let's look at it from the very positive side of things. Definitely not a deficit; it's a positive. So I think we'll give it another. It's just noon, so we'll give it another few minutes. But as we're settling in, I want to introduce formally, and I'll introduce her again if there's a larger group, Rabbi Amalia Mark, our colleague from Mayim Chaim, the innovative mikveh that is now, is it 20 years old, Amalia?
Yes, our 18th birthday, I believe, of being open just passed, but of being conceived to being opened is 20 years.
I know, kind of really remarkable. And those of us local to Boston have had the tremendous privilege and pleasure of seeing so many of the innovations in real life and in real time that Mayim Chaim has created. And I'm sure many of you who are not in the Boston area already are also feeling the ripples of Mayim Chaim's innovations. And Amalia, I'll let you introduce your title, and we'll start shortly. And maybe everyone can say hi too, okay?
Great, that's part of what we're going to be doing. So I think we can get started in about 3 minutes. I don't want to penalize those who came on time. And I also know that this is lunchtime. So if folks are grabbing lunch, and also if you brought lunch, please feel free to eat on screen if it's within your time zone of lunch. Otherwise, call it snack time, but you should be comfortable. So this is a great time to grab if you don't have something that you want to stay hydrated with, or a snack, or if you want to grab any journaling supplies for before we do that. Now's a good time to do that as well. I got my cup of tea ready. Great, Richie, I see that you also have a cup of tea.
So Amalia, I think it's okay to start, and people.
I'm fine with that. A little note about how we'll be using tech today. I'm going to be sharing my screen for most of the time that we're together. But because we're a small group, we can either feel free to stay on mute if you feel more comfortable that way, or you can unmute. And we'll be using the chat as well to be able to talk amongst each other, because Zoom still has not quite figured out how to do that feature super well. Marianne, if someone puts something in the chat and I don't catch it, please do unmute. Tell me. So I'm going to be relying on you for that. And I'm going to be sharing my screen now. Great. Here we go for beginning. All right. I know everyone has seen this a million times, but can everyone see my screen? And I want to make sure that I can see all of you. Okay, everyone just disappeared, which is not fun. All right, so welcome everybody. I am so glad to be here with all of you. I'm just gonna acclimate my screen a little bit. There we go. Okay, and I'm gonna open the chat because we're gonna be using that in a moment. So we're gonna look at our little agenda together. I've put it here so you can see and know what we're going to do. We're going to do some introductions together. We're going to do a little bit of Mikvah 101 to understand why we're going to do what we're going to do later in this. We're going to study 2 freedom texts together and really wrap our hands around what it means. And then we'll do some journaling and reflection. And then we'll have our own mikvah moment together and have some hand washing time. Any questions about that before I continue? Great. So I would love if folks could either unmute or share in the chat your name, your pronouns, if you wish to share them, and something you're looking forward to this Passover. I'm going to leave the agenda up on our screen so you can still see the prompt as well. And you can unmute or you can put yourself into the chat. I still can't see participants for some reason. Even after all these Zoom years, something always goes a little funky. So if you want to just unmute, go ahead.
Yes, I urge you to just unmute and pipe in. So whoever's ready first. And I see Beth is joining us, which is wonderful.
Hi, Beth. So your name, your pronouns, and something you're looking forward to this Passover.
Sorry, you're ready?
Sure, I can start. My name is Sora. I use she, her pronouns. And this is my first Pesach in Boston, and I have a lot of family here. So I'm going to be at the Seder with new family for the first time. I'm really looking forward to it. Check.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Anyone? Richie, go ahead.
Well, I live in a different time zone. I'm in the North Texas area. And this is the first year I'm celebrating Pesach without my husband because he passed since last Pesach. So it'll be a different kind of experience, which will feel different, obviously. So I'm looking for new meaning and new ways to feel good, even though he's not here with me.
Thank you, Richie.
Beth, welcome. Do you see the prompt on the first part of the agenda there? And you're muted, of course.
I'm zooming from my phone because my computer, I'm getting a brand new computer this afternoon because my computer hard drive crashed. So this is the only way for me to Zoom right now. So I can't see anything.
No worries. I can say them out loud for you.
It's okay.
Beth, welcome. If you want to share your name, your pronouns, and something you're looking forward to this Passover.
Okay, so my name is Beth Goldstein, and I use she, her pronouns, and I am looking forward to my parents being here for Passover, and having Seder, and we bought a house in June, so it'll be our first Seder in our house, and we're having a lot of friends over also, so I'm really looking forward to that.
That sounds wonderful. Mazal tov on this big moment of buying a house.
I know. It was a long journey, 3.5 years, 11 bids. We finally bought a house. So
Mazel tov, mazel tov. It looks like someone else has joined us. Robin, welcome. We're just doing introductions, so you're right on time. Amazing. If you'd like to share, we're doing names, pronouns if you want to share them, and something you're looking forward to this Passover.
I'm Robin. I use she, her pronouns, and looking forward to being with my family and young niece and nephew on Pesach.
I love it. Thank you. Mary, did you want to share?
Sure, I'm happy to. So hi, everyone. I'm Marion, and I use she, her pronouns. And I'm looking forward to being with my parents in New York. So it's a little bit different than normal. They're getting elderly. They are elderly, and not so sure how much of a Seder we're going to have, but we're going to be together, and that's the important part.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'll share. Hi, I am Rabbi Amalia Mark. I use she, her pronouns. I work for Mayim Chaim, a community mikveh in Newton, Massachusetts. I'm going to talk more about that. And I'm really looking forward to my mother-in-law coming for Passover. She is going to be staying with my parents because we're going to my parents. So it's going to be the first time she's met my parents, but the first time she's staying with them, and we're having, this whole holiday together, and my best friend is coming in from Israel. So it's really going to be like a chaotic, fun, emotional Pesach. I'm really, really, really looking forward to it. So as folks join, they're welcome to introduce themselves. If there's anything else you want to share about yourself, you're welcome to put it into the chat, including where you are, because I heard that we are not all Boston based. I, in fact, am in Brooklyn, New York. So if you want to put your location, please do. But we're going to move on and talk a little bit about mikvah, because we're going to be doing a micro mikvah today. So when I say the word mikvah, some of you might have some familiarity with it. Some of you might not. So I've put 3 prompts on the screen in front of us. And I'm asking all of us, and we're just going to do this lightning fast. What do you know about ritual immersion, also known as mikvah? What have you heard about mikvah? And then you'll notice there are a bunch of question marks. And those are my favorite, because when I say the word mikvah and you're throwing your hands up in the air and saying, I have no idea what you're saying, what is that word? Those question marks are for you. So these are all things to help us just develop what's in the room. What's the knowledge we might have already? What do we need to know to make sure that we're all on the same page together? So folks can either unmute or throw in the chat an answer, or a bunch of question marks, or a shrugging emoji of what do you already know? What might you know about mikvah? And there's no right or wrong answer in this. It's just what might have you heard? What do you think you know? Let's gather it. And if the answer is none of us know anything, okay, Sarah kicking us off. An embodied Jewish ritual to support transitions. Awesome. Love that. Great. Anyone else know anything or have just a, I don't know what this is? Remember, question marks are always welcome in the chat.
There we go.
Get one more thing. Ah, great. We got more than that. Robin, I love it. I associate it with purity and purifying, cleaning, marking something new. So I'm hearing again, transitions, more transitions, purity to impurity, cleaning, beautiful, ritual bath, a time for renewal. Fantastic. So we definitely know some stuff. Love it. We're not starting from nothing. And also, let's make sure that we all have the same exact definition of mikvah for today when we're talking about it together. So when I say the word mikvah, this is what I'm talking about on the screen, which I'm going to read out to us. This, when I say the word mikvah, is what I mean. A gathering of water used for ritual immersion by Jews and those becoming Jewish at the moment of conversion. This is a full body ritual immersion, meaning you go into the water, generally wearing nothing at all, to mark a moment of transition. So when I am talking about mikvah, I am talking about ritual immersion. And when I say ritual, I mean we might do it with a lot of intention and care, and we might do it the same way each time or a different way each time. Any questions about mikvah before I move forward? Great. As they come up, just because I'm moving slides does not mean that you can't ask questions. So I encourage you to keep asking questions in the chat or unmute as they arise. So now that we know what mikvah is, where does it come from? Did I just make this whole idea up and we got excited 20 years ago and decided like this would be a great thing? No, definitely not. In fact, it comes from the Bible. This is one of we just started the book of Leviticus this week, this Saturday. We're going to be starting with the very first book. Yeah, very first part of Leviticus. So it's very exciting. So this is a little further in. We'll see this in a couple of weeks. And I'm going to read this sentence in English and in Hebrew so we can get it into our ears. And we're going to dive deep, pun intended, very quickly into this verse because this is where mikvah comes from. Some folks said it's a ritual bath. Some folks said that it is about purifying and cleansing and embodied. So here is where we understand every single thing there is to know about mikvah. I'm going to have you share whether or not you see it in our text. Ach mayan ubor mikveh mayim yigiyeh tahor. Only a spring or a pit in which waters gather will be ritually pure. Does anyone know how to build a mikveh from this verse? Let's see some hands. I'm seeing some no's. Seeing that folks are not sure how to build a mikveh, but we just said this is the source text for how to build a mikveh, for what a mikveh is, for all of the understanding we have about it. So we have to do the rabbinic project of going into a text and saying, what does this actually mean? And in fact, I think this is the Jewish Educator Project. So as Jewish educators, I'm going to ask you to share a little bit when we start moving into each of these words. I'm going to quickly take us through each word of this because each word matters. Before I do that, I want to hear in the chat, what words stick out to you? What do you notice? And remember, every word counts and every word matters, so there's no wrong answer. So you can put in the chat in English or Hebrew, a word that you notice in this verse, something either that you're like, oh, that's cool, or I noticed this, or I have a question about that word.
Yeah, Amalia, they're coming. There was one in already.
Yeah, wonderful. It's not above the ground. Interesting, Richie. Do you want to share a little bit more about that?
It's either a pit, which is in the ground, or
Mhm.
something that's streaming, that's natural. So it's not
Beautiful.
it's not
So
constructed.
amazing. 2 models right there. Wonderful, gorgeous. Does anyone else have a word that they're noticing? You can mute or you can unmute or put it in the chat.
Yeah, Amalia, Richie, just the way the slide is showing,
no.
is not being seen,
Okay, is that better?
but not really. There, yeah, that's better.
Okay,
That's
great.
it. That
Thank
did
you.
it.
Thanks for pointing that out, Richie. I appreciate it. Thanks for supporting our learning.
So the word that's interesting to me is gather. Because it's not just like there's something about the water has to gather as opposed to like a spring or a pit holds water, but why this word gather? Like, what is that? There's something there that's interesting to me.
Robin, I love it. You're hitting the nail on the head. Mikveh literally means gather.
Oh.
And so we're going to talk about it in a moment. Does anyone else have anything that they want to share about this verse that's coming out at them?
Yeah, I do. About gather, I feel like typically we use the word gather when we're talking about people gathering, and the mikveh, I think can be done individually, but is really about having the support of a community and the support of a tradition and a ritual. And so the word gather just feels so right.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah, Richie, go ahead.
Also, something becoming that is pure, nothing else needed. I mean, by its existing, by the way it gathers together, it is holy. You don't have to do anything else, not holy or pure. And nothing else is needed on our end, on the basis of mikveh.
Gorgeous. Yes, absolutely. There is so much wisdom happening in this space. I wish we could stay on this text for our entire time together. We can't, but I appreciate everything everyone has shared. It's making me see these words in a new light. And I've been teaching this for 3 years. Not a long time, but enough time. And so I really appreciate everyone's contributions. I'm going to share a little bit of what the Jewish legal tradition traces these words as. But please feel free to put in the chat as I go anything that's sparking for you as well. So, only these 2 models, a spring or a pit. So a mayan, a spring. What do we mean when we say a spring? It means water coming up naturally from the earth. So oceans, rivers, lakes. Has anyone been in oceans, rivers, or lakes at any point in their life? See some hands. Okay, I'm seeing, I think, almost everyone. Congratulations, you've all been in a mikveh. That is a kosher mikveh fit for ritual use. So That's one model. Model number 2 is a bore, a pit, something in the ground. It might have occurred naturally, like a pit in a cave, or it might be something that we've dug into the ground, like a mikveh at Mayim Chaim, for example. Mikveh, gather. The waters gather inside the bore, inside the pit. The two models of mikveh, one which is moving, flowing water, where it can't be gathered, versus a pit built into the ground where the waters have to gather. So mikveh is gather. Mayim, water and only water. All right, everyone, let's test our chops. Can I have a mikveh fit for ritual use, aka kosher, made and filled with chocolate milk? Is that a mikveh that is kosher according to our verse? Let's see a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Thumbs up, yes, chocolate milk mikveh. Saying some solid no's. Okay, yes, that's correct. You're all very wise. You cannot have a kosher mikveh fit for ritual use that has something that isn't water inside of it. And the water can't be so thick that it's almost mud. It has to be considered water. It also can't be vodka, even if it looks like water. So yeah, will be both of these, the spring and the pit, shall be tahor, ritually pure, or ritually ready. Mikveh helps us become ready. It helps us change states from ritually impure to ritually pure, or ritually unready to ritually ready, maybe from other than Jewish to Jewish, but mikveh is the wellspring that helps us move. Any questions before, I know we just zoomed through that, any questions before I move us along? You can feel free to unmute or just put it in the chat. Okay, so we understand the difference between these two, something in the ground, a bore, water isn't flowing, it's human made, versus a natural body of water, a ma'ayan, not tampered with by people. Great. At Mayim Chaim, we have a bore mikveh, a mikveh that is built into the ground. The water isn't flowing. We bring the Mayim Chaim, the living water, in through a pipe. And it is a safe place where I said it's a full body ritual immersion. You don't have to worry about public nudity. The water is warm. There is access for everyone. We have an aquatic lift if it's needed. And we make sure that everyone's needs are taken care of. So at Mayim Chaim, we really care about making this ritual of mikveh inclusive and accessible for everyone. And we mentioned that there is some transitions people might come to the mikveh for. So I've put some in front of us. There are, you might notice, a very large number. So looking at the screen of why people might come and immerse, we have 3 categories: commanded, customary, and new. Commanded, when I say commanded, I just want to make a little asterisk next to that, that being Mayim Chaim is a community mikveh, a mikveh for all Jewish people. Who knows Jews who do the same type of Judaism all the time as each other? Okay, I should put my hand down. I actually don't know anyone like that. Great. So we understand that for some people, commanded means commanded, and for some people, commanded is not something that is part of their Jewish practice. So we have space for everyone's practice of mikveh at Mayim Chaim. Some people do Judaism in a way that they understand this ritual to be commanded, and some people do not understand it to be commanded, but still want to engage in the ritual. Everyone is treated the same at Mayim Chaim in that they are holy and welcome. So customary, some of these have been practiced for thousands of years, like immersing before high holidays. And new, these are going to be customary in about 2,000 years. People are going to say, for 2,000 years, we've been immersing before a B'nai Mitzvah. But they're new right now because they've only really started happening in the past 20 years because of Mayim Chaim. Are there any reasons that you can think of why someone might come to the mikvah that I don't have listed here? I didn't put them all. Yeah, Richie, go ahead.
People that emerge their new dishes.
Yes. Yes, immersing your new dishes, which is a practice that some people have. It transitions ownership. So fantastic. Love that. Beth, is that a hand?
Yeah, so I know people who have immersed with the baby when they've adopted the baby.
Yes. Yes. So affirming a new family or bringing a child into the Jewish world. Beth, I know folks who have immersed when they've bought their first house because that's a really big transition. It's a big moment.
With the house?
Yes, they brought the whole house into the mikvah, correct? Yes.
We did come to Mine Pine before we got married, but not before the house. So
So there are so many reasons. There isn't one reason. Some people come just because they're curious, and that is just fine too. So we've learned about mikvah. We've learned that it's a ritual we use to support transitions. And what bigger transition is there than leaving Egypt? Passover is a moment of transition for us as a Jewish people, where we go from slaves to people, to freedom. And I brought the word Mitzrayim, which is Egypt, where the Israelites left. And the root of Mitzrayim, the shorash, is Mem Tzadi Resh, which means narrow or distress. So this place of distress or narrowness is how we're going to be thinking about it. And we're going to go into two little text studies right now. We're going to do similar to what we did with our verse from Leviticus. You are all practiced at this, of looking at words and saying, what do I notice here? What words are standing out to me? Remember, they all matter, so you can't go wrong. And then we're going to use our learning to be able to think about ourselves and bring it home, and then try embodying our own understanding of moving from narrowness and distress into hope, into opportunity, into expansiveness. So this is from the Haggadah, which is our, as my teacher would say, our very first story, our oldest story, our oldest collected story. And it says, "B'chol dor vador chayav adam lirot et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa mimitzrayim." So we're going to read this in a couple of weeks around a table together. And every generation, person is obligated to see themselves as if they left a narrow place. I translated it a little bit different than you might see in your Haggadah. So folks don't need to answer, but I've also placed a question on our screen of, what is your narrow place? If in every generation we're obligated to see ourselves leaving this place, what is that place for me? Now, what other words do you notice in this verse? What stands out to you? Robin, did I see a hand? No, just a stretch. I love a stretch. Good.
I'm happy to give you a word.
Sure.
I guess the word I would give you is obligation,
Why does that stand out to you?
or obligation to see.
Mhm.
Somehow the eternity of this and the reflective practice of this and the need to use imagination.
Thank you. Thank you. Richie, go ahead.
The B'chol dor vador, because it's different. It's evolving. People are in different narrow places and different hardships at different times. And it could be different. It could be the same, but it's repetitive. I mean, you could be in different narrow places throughout your lifetime. Not once, more than once.
Yeah, absolutely. It changes. And we do this every year. Beautiful. Thank you. Does anyone want to share a place that they felt particularly narrow or constricted over the past year? And it's okay if you don't. But I do encourage you to be thinking about this as we move into our next text and then our hand washing of isolating where that space is for you. And if this doesn't resonate at all and you're like, I have no narrowness in my life, then amazing. Good. Does anyone else want to share if there's something in this verse that stands out to them in English or Hebrew before we move to our next one?
No, Amalia,
Yeah.
Sora put something in the
Oh,
chat.
sorry, go ahead. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. I moved my chat so it didn't block. Thinking of the need to use imagination. Yes, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciated how Robin said that, and that there's an obligation here to use your imagination.
Yeah, we sort of have to access a creative part of ourselves. Beautiful, beautiful. Does anyone disagree with this? I've sort of presented it as like, of course we're going to do this, but I also want to leave space for people to say, I dispute this, I don't agree.
I think,
So we're,
think
go ahead, Robin.
I don't mean to talk so much. Cut me off.
Please,
if somebody
please.
doesn't talk. Like on one hand, I think about it's very particular because it is speaking to, right, the Jewish community. And then I think about, well, what does it mean when we have Jewish adjacent and non-Jewish family members at our Seders? And at the same time, it's actually very universal because we've, I mean, I was going to say sometimes I feel like lay leaders are the narrow places in my, right? So, but I don't know that that's my personal narrow place, but that was like the thought that came to my mind.
Great, thank you.
So I-
Yes, yeah, Marian, go ahead.
I think it's really interesting that the word is Adam. It's not Yehudi. It's not, Bnei Yisrael. It's Adam. So it is the universal. So I think there's something intentional there. In Amalia, as Amalia's been saying, every word has a purpose and a meaning. So
Absolutely, yes. I was about to point that out, Marian. Thank you. I love being able to say, like, this is actually an incredibly universal experience. That it is, this sentence is about generations of people being able to do this for themselves in this moment in time. That there's something powerful about this moment in time and moving through it. Gorgeous. We're going to move on just because we have to because of time. Again, I would spend all of our time just doing one text together if we could, because there's so much wisdom in this room. And this we read a couple of weeks ago. This is when the Israelites are standing at the edge of the sea. They've left Egypt. They are being pursued by the Egyptians. And they are crying out to Moses, who then cries out to God, where we have on one end is Egyptians approaching with murder in mind, and on the other end, endless sea, and the Israelites in the middle. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, ma titzak elai, daber el bnei Yisrael v'yisau. Then God said to Moses, why do you cry out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward. So let's, before we do anything else, what do you notice in this verse? What stands out to you?
So I'm thinking, those of us as educators who work with beginning educators, that it takes time to learn how to jump off the cliff. And sometimes you just need your mentor or your boss or your layperson or whoever to say, okay, it's time, just do it. And so that's what's resonating for me right now, that Moshe was at a particular point in his leadership and needed God to say, it's time, just do it. So that's how it's landing for me right now.
Thank you, Marian. Sometimes you gotta go. Sometimes you just have to do the thing. Sora and Richie, I see. Sora, then Richie.
Yeah, I just see this as God as a warm demander to Moses, is like, this is not the time to question, this is the time to go forward, and you have to be the one to lead. And that it's like, yeah, that it's a warm demand. Because God is there. God is there for Moses as well.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sarah. Richie?
Moses is still new to this and he doesn't really know how to be the middle person as much. So instead of being neutral, he is yelling or crying out. Instead of keeping his own personality and his own problems or thoughts to himself, he's showing it when he shouldn't be, because he shouldn't be showing his people that he's stressed out as well. He should try to be a leader. So he's in the learning process.
Leadership, learning leadership. Yeah, that is certainly a strong curve.
And God doesn't tell him to lead them. He doesn't say,
No.
well, show them the way. He said, tell them to move. He's still also not maybe sure of Moses's abilities, maybe. We don't know.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Does anyone have anything else they want to share about this verse? Something they notice in it?
But I also think what's interesting, this is God. God
Yeah.
could come and say, okay, now we're going or go. But God is telling Moshe that it's his turn to tell the Israelites. So that transition also from giving the agency to Moshe.
Lovely. I want to now pull us back to the place this is happening in, where on the one side we have the pursuing Egyptians, and on the other side we have this endless sea, and God telling the Israelites to go forward into the sea is not particularly kind to just wade in. And I think it points to water is the thing that supports our transitions. The Israelites have to go through water in order to literally cross the sea and to become something new. It's central to this Passover story. There's these midrashim, these stories, these rabbinic stories of the first person who walks into the water, Nachshon ben Aminadav. He wades in, and the sea only splits once it's just above, the water's just above his head. He has a full mikvah before the waters split. But in this moment of our narrowness and our fear and our worry, we don't always feel confident of moving forward. And water is there to help facilitate that expansiveness. God is saying, tell the Israelites to go forward, and we can do that. Some people might use mikvah to do that. Some people might use other rituals, but it's literally in our Jewish texts of moving forward through water will take us safely to the other side. So we're gonna do some reflecting now. I asked folks to bring something to write on, like a journal or a piece of paper. Scrap paper is fine if you want to do that, or your computer is good too. And we're going to be reflecting on these 3 prompts in order to do a hand washing together, in order to take our learning and then bring it into our bodies. So I'm going to read our prompts out loud. I know, Beth, you can't see the screen super well. So I'm going to read them out loud so you can catch them. And they are, when was the last time I felt open to change? Where am I stuck? What narrow place do I find myself in? What do I need to leave behind in order to move forward? I'm going to keep these prompts up on the screen. And you will not be asked to share your answer to any of these. This is for you and you alone. This is some work that you might do before an immersion, before a hand washing like we're about to do, but we're setting our kavanah, our intention now, of taking ourselves out of our narrow places, out of our Mitzrayim, or preparing ourselves to move out of that narrow place. I'm going to try playing some music for the next 5 minutes or so. You'll have 5 minutes to respond. And then I'll call us back together and we'll move into our hand washing. So if you do finish writing, I'm going to encourage you to grab your vessel filled with water, a towel, and a bowl. And I'll remind everyone again after we finish writing. Any questions? Great. Okay. I'm going to try playing some music. We're going to see if it works. Okay. If you are still writing, still reflecting, come to a close, finish the sentence, finish the thought, finish the feeling. And then find your towel, your vessel filled with water, and your bowl. If you don't have those on you immediately, and give everyone a moment while I adjust my space for it. We're going to do a collective hand washing together. So if you do have your materials, like this, everyone to be able to see. Okay, great. If you do have your materials, then you can get set up. I encourage you to move any electronics other than your computer that you're on away. I'm actually going to adjust while folks are still getting ready. We can move this along. Yeah,
You want to stop sharing your screen so that everyone can, you will have a bigger view of you, or do you still?
yeah. Well, I'm going to lead us through some prompts.
Okay, fine.
And I'm going to talk us through it. I'm going to guide us through it. So you actually don't even really need to see me. If you want to, you can, but I'm going to verbally guide us through the way a mikvah guide might guide through a ritual. You can go wash your hands if you want to. You can take off rings. I leave my wedding ring on because I never take it off, but there's a practice of removing barriers from your body before immersing and removing chatzitzot. That's Hebrew for barriers. So if you have a watch, taking it off is always welcome. If you have sleeves that you want to roll up, this is a good moment to do that. Because I might get wet. All right, I am going to guide us through. You can just look at the screen. You don't need to be looking at me. I will be sort of focusing my screen on my hands and my vessel, but we're going to start with this kavanah together. I'm going to ask everyone to mute so you can say it out loud and not get distracted by the audio feedback that we're going to hear from each other. We're going to say this kavanah and then move through our hand washing together. Any questions? Great. I'm going to invite you to take a breath, center yourself. Let's begin. Washing our hands, we remember the holiness of creation. Creation of the body, creation of the soul, creation of the world, and creation of new possibilities. So you can remove anything now that you might want to take off of your hands. And we can say together, I am here today to acknowledge and affirm this moment in my life's journey. I wash my hands using an ancient ritual found in many cultures and rooted in Jewish tradition. Just as the Israelites stood at the shores of the Red Sea, I prepare for a hand washing as part of my own journey toward freedom. So pick up your vessel. Place your left hand over your bowl and pour water over your hand while saying, I acknowledge the narrow places in my life, the ones I have come through and those yet ahead of me. You can pour more water over your hand. Feel it trickle through. And then we pour water over our right hand. And we say, our ancestor Nachshon showed courage by stepping into waters yet unparted. I too claim courage in the unknown with open heart and open hands. I wash my hands a second time for hope. You can wash your hand or water over your palm or the back of your hand. Now we're going to pour water over the top of our right hand and then switch again and pour water over our left. And then we say, as the buds unfurl in spring, I honor the renewal and new growth within me. And take a moment to feel the water on your hands. Think about the narrow places that we're in and how we're going to move forward. Take your towel and dry your hands. You can clean up the water that you maybe spilled around your bowl. And before you put your bowl and water to the side, and take one last breath together. And put it to the side. Finish cleaning up our water, get our towels. And we say together, rooted in my people's history, I emerge from these waters, ready to take my place in our continuing quest for freedom. Amen. May it be so.
Candy Hiratson.
So we're almost at our time together. And we have a couple of reflection questions that you're welcome to share in the chat or unmute. And our prompts are one thing I learned, a question I still have, and a word I'm departing with. And in order for me to make sure I can see everybody's faces, I'm just going to put that into the chat directly. So one thing I learned, a question I still have, no word I'm departing with. You do not need to answer all of them, but one is fine. Two words Sora is departing with, imagination and gather. Thank you. Marian learned the power of the hand washing ritual. Thank you. Question Marian's leaving with, bringing this to others. We can chat about that if you want. Richie or Madeline, would you like to share? Question, a word. Beth, thank you. Departing with thinking about where our narrow places are. Yes. Thank you. I am departing with a lot of gratitude to be able to have this time for an hour during my day. Richie, being able to share this ritual with others. Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your Torah, yourselves. It's been really, really wonderful to learn together. If you'd like to get involved in Mayim Chaim, I'm going to put our website in the chat, as well as if you are outside the Boston area, we have a network of open mikvaot called Rising Tide. And I'm putting that in the chat as well. You can get involved that way and become a mikvah guide anywhere you are in the world. Spelling it wrong.
What I will say, if anyone, thank you. First of all, thank you, Amalia. Yasher Kochech, this was really powerful and beautiful. I hope that everyone felt moved by Amalia's work with us this morning. And obviously, if people want to connect more deeply with Mayim Chaim, feel free to reach out to me at Hebrew College, and I can help make a connection. And I am really, really grateful for everyone's presence today. And I am wondering if people are thinking about bringing such a thing to your own Seder, to your own preparation in these next number of weeks, and or to your students and your faculties where you work. So just something to think about. I am going to share my screen just to share the information about our next free workshop, which is after Pesach, and it's actually on Yom HaZikaron, and it's a wonderful follow-up to this. We're going to be moving from rituals to artifacts and learning how to bring memory to life through our partnership with the National Library of Israel. I really encourage everybody to make time to come to this one. Obviously, there'll be publicity going out and registration and the like. So I just do want to thank everybody for being with us today. And if people have a last word, a question, a comment, please feel free to unmute and share. Zora, it's lovely to meet you. Can't wait to meet you in person. I see now where you're standing. Oh my goodness.
It's
inside.
full and the Nadine is full, so I needed somewhere that could hold the water.
Got it.
Sarah is at Mayim Chaim right now.
And so I want to wish everybody a wonderful Pesach, a time of joy and renewal and freedom, and counting our blessings and praising our blessings as well. So wishing you all a wonderful Pesach and a wonderful beginning of spring. Today is spring equinox. I think that's what today is called. Thank you. Richie, what do you mean? Am I active in Israel?
Are you talking about Mayim Chaim?
Yeah.
So we have a mikvah in Israel that's part of our network of Rising Tide. It's on Kibbutz Hanaton. It is the only mikvah. It's the first mikvah in Israel that let anyone immerse. And it's still like that. It's run by Rabbi Chaviva Ner David. It is wonderful. If you go on our website, you can find on the Rising Tide website, you can find more information about it. It is a really special place.
And Rabbi Ner David is a very special human being. She's written some beautiful books that are wonderful to deepen your knowledge about renewal and the like. So wonderful to see everybody. Have a wonderful couple of weeks and hope to see you on April 25th.
Thank you so much, Marian, for bringing us in. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amalia. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.